The colony fields stretched wide under a red-tinted sky, glowing faintly from the light of the moons. Towering machines moved slowly in the distance, their heavy blades slicing through tall crops with a growl that echoed for miles. These harvesters were built to feed thousands, but their size and power made them terrifying. No one ever stood in their way, because anything caught before those blades would be lost forever. In the shadows of those fields, a small alien girl stumbled as her family pulled her forward. The soil was rough beneath her bare feet, sharp stones cutting her skin, but no one slowed down. Her wrists were held so tightly that she could feel the blood rush from her hands. She looked up at her family, eyes wide, searching for answers. None came. Their faces were hard, unreadable, and their steps heavy with silence. She whispered in fear, asking what was happening, why they were bringing her here. Her mother turned her head away. Her brothers avoided her gaze. Only her father looked at her, and in his eyes she saw not anger but a cold decision, one already made long before this night. When they reached the heart of the field, her father shoved her to the ground. Dust filled her mouth as she coughed, tears stinging her eyes. Rough rope was pulled around her wrists and ankles, the fibers biting into her skin. She struggled, pleading with them, but her words seemed to vanish into the night. Not one of them stepped forward to untie her. Not one reached to comfort her. The girl's heart broke as realization struck. They were leaving her here, leaving her to face the harvesters. She begged them again. Please don't do this. Please, I can still help. I can still be useful. But her father raised a hand, and the rest turned away. It was not cruelty in their silence, but fear. They spoke quietly about curses, about bloodlines, about how their family would suffer if she continued to live. To them, sacrifice was survival, and she had been chosen. The harvester's light grew stronger. Its beams cut across the soil, sweeping closer. The machine's roar filled the night air like a storm rolling across the land. The girl trembled as the ground shook beneath her body. She pulled against the ropes, scraping her skin raw, but the knots held firm. Her family stepped back into the darkness. One by one, their shapes disappeared until only the echo of their footsteps remained. She was alone. Her chest tightened with panic. She screamed for them to return, her voice cracking in desperation. But they did not come. Her cries carried out into the empty fields, fading beneath the growl of the machine. The smell of oil and fuel drifted closer, heavy and choking. The girl's eyes locked on the spinning blades. They glimmered in the moonlight, sharp and merciless. Every rotation brought them closer. Her breath came in quick gasps. Her heart pounded like a drum inside her chest. This was it. She was not meant to survive. She thought of running, but the ropes burned her wrists and ankles. She thought of calling again, but her throat had grown dry. All she could do was wait as death rushed toward her. Then, something strange happened. Far across the field, another figure moved. A human worker, tall and broad, paused at the edge of the crops. He was not part of her family. He was not part of her kind. Humans were strangers here, laborers given the hardest tasks, often ignored or treated with suspicion. And yet, on this night, he was the only one who noticed her. At first, he thought the shape near the harvester was just broken equipment. But then the light from the machine hit her face. He froze, breath caught in his throat. It was a child, bound, left to die. For a moment, he did not move. His mind raced. He had heard whispers about these rituals, about families abandoning their own. He had dismissed them as cruel stories told by angry workers. But here it was, unfolding before his eyes. If he interfered, he would risk everything: his work, his safety, his place in the colony. The elders did not forgive outsiders who questioned tradition. But as the machine drew closer, he saw the girl's wide, terrified eyes. She was screaming, though the sound barely reached him over the roar of the harvester. She strained against the ropes, her small body shaking with fear. He felt something twist deep inside him. He knew what would happen if he walked away. He would hear her screams forever. He would see her eyes every time he closed his own. The harvester thundered nearer. Dust and smoke filled the air, turning the world into a blur of red and black. The girl's cries grew weaker, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her family was gone. No one else would come. Except him. The human clenched his fists. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He knew that the moment he ran, his life would change. But he also knew that if he did nothing, hers would end. He looked once at the sky, as though searching for courage. Then, with a sudden burst of motion, he ran into the field. His boots slammed against the soil, throwing up dirt as he charged forward. The harvester's light swallowed him, blinding and fierce. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he kept running. The machine roared louder, its blades spinning so close now, he could feel the vibrations under his skin. The girl's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it. Someone had seen her. Someone was coming for her. For the first time since her family had abandoned her, hope flickered inside her chest. But the blades were seconds away. The human's breath came heavy as he pushed himself through the field. Each step pounded against the dirt, echoing like a drumbeat in the night. The harvester's roar grew deafening, a monster rushing forward without mercy. His eyes stayed locked on the girl. Her body twisted against the ropes, her mouth open in silent cries, her eyes glowing with fear. For a brief moment, doubt stabbed at him. What am I doing? He thought. This was not his fight. He was only a worker, an outsider in a colony that barely trusted his kind. He had no family here, no one to protect him if the elders grew angry. If he cut those ropes, he would be standing against tradition itself. The human had heard the whispers. Some alien families believed in blood sacrifices, abandoning their own to save the rest. To challenge that belief was to invite punishment, exile, maybe even death. His hands shook as he ran. His mind screamed at him to stop, to turn around, to let the harvester do what it was built to do. But his legs did not stop. His chest burned, yet he ran harder. He could not erase the look in the girl's eyes. They were not the eyes of a curse. They were the eyes of a child begging for life. The harvester thundered closer. Its giant blades spun with a shrill metallic scream. Dust rose in thick clouds, choking the air, filling his lungs. The ground vibrated so hard that he stumbled. For a heartbeat, he almost fell. His knee struck the soil, sharp pain shooting up his leg. He bit back a cry and forced himself up again. There was no time. The girl saw him falter and shook her head wildly, as though begging him to hurry. Tears streaked her dirt-covered face. Her lips moved, but the roar of the machine swallowed her voice. The human's thoughts raced. If he reached her, what then? He had no blade sharp enough to cut rope quickly. He had only his hands, rough from work but not strong enough to tear through knots before the harvester reached them. And even if he saved her, where would they go? Her family had abandoned her. The colony would not welcome her back. They might even come after him. The dilemma burned in his mind. He could walk away now, pretend he had seen nothing. No one would blame him. No one would even know. It would be easier, safer. But then his heart reminded him of the truth. If he left her, she would die screaming. And he would live with that sound forever. He roared against the fear inside him and threw himself forward again. The ropes glowed in the harvester's harsh light as he reached the girl's side. She flinched at first, not believing what she saw. Then her eyes widened with something new, hope. The human dropped to his knees. His hands yanked at the knots, fingers clawing at the rope. The fibers bit into his skin, scraping until his fingertips bled. He gritted his teeth, pulling, twisting, tearing, but the knots held strong. The harvester's shadow swallowed them whole. The air grew hot with its engines. The blades spun like hungry jaws, now so close that flecks of dirt sprayed against his face. He could hear the grinding, the slicing, the unstoppable power. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he did not. He looked at the girl, saw the tears pooling in her eyes, and knew he could not abandon her. With a growl, he leaned closer and bit at the rope, his teeth pulling at the knots where his fingers failed. Fibers snapped against his lips. His gums stung, blood filling his mouth. But little by little, the knots loosened. The girl gasped as her hands came free. She reached out, trembling, clutching his arm with all her strength. He wasted no time. He grabbed her waist, yanked her off the ground, and stumbled backward. The harvester screamed past them with a roar so loud it shook the earth. The blades slashed the soil where the girl had been lying only seconds earlier. Dust exploded into the air, covering them both in choking clouds. The human fell onto his back, the girl in his arms. His chest heaved, lungs on fire, but relief flooded through him. He had done it. He had saved her. But his relief lasted only a breath. Shadows moved at the edge of the field. Figures, alien workers, perhaps even her family, had seen what he had done. Their voices carried across the wind, sharp and angry. The human's stomach twisted. He had broken their law. He had undone their sacrifice. And now they would not stay silent. The girl buried her face against his chest, her body shaking. She whispered words he could not understand, but he felt their meaning in her tone. Gratitude mixed with fear. The human looked down at her, then back toward the approaching figures. He knew he had chosen his path, and there was no turning back. The girl was alive, but now both of their lives were in danger. The harvester thundered past, its monstrous blades missing them by only a breath. The ground shook as the machine rolled forward, tearing deep lines into the soil where the girl had been tied just moments ago. The human lay on his back, clutching the trembling child, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. He had pulled her from death's grip, but danger was far from over. The night air was thick with dust, every inhale sharp like knives in his throat. He coughed, blinking through the haze. The girl's small hands clung to his shirt, refusing to let go. She was alive, but her body was weak, her skin scratched raw from rope and dirt. Her wide eyes, glowing faintly in the harvester's fading lights, stared at him as if he were something impossible, someone who had chosen to see her when no one else did. He opened his mouth to speak, to comfort her, but shouts cut across the field. The human froze. Silhouettes moved in the distance. Tall, lean alien figures, their voices sharp with anger. They had seen. The colony was waking. The girl's breathing grew frantic. She knew those voices, her families among them. They had not expected anyone to interfere, and now their sacrifice had been undone. To them, this was not salvation, it was betrayal. The human's pulse quickened. His instincts screamed at him to run. He grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her to her feet. Her legs wobbled, weak from fear and rope burns, but she pushed herself to move. Behind them, the harvester's engine still growled, their paths cutting endless lines across the field. If the watchers alerted the elders, he would never get her out alive. The only chance was to move fast before the colony gathered. "Stay close," he said firmly, his voice low but steady. She nodded quickly, though her body trembled. They dashed into the rows of towering crops. The stalks swayed around them, tall enough to hide their small figures. The soil was uneven, the air filled with the metallic tang of fuel and the sharp scent of harvested plants. Every step sent pain shooting up the human's leg where he had stumbled earlier, but he gritted his teeth and kept going. The girl stumbled behind him, nearly falling. Without thinking, he scooped her into his arms and pushed forward. She was light, but fear weighed heavy on his chest. He could feel her heart pounding against his ribs. Shouts grew louder. The aliens were chasing them now, their steps quick and their language harsh, carried by the wind. A whistle pierced the night, a signal. The human's blood ran cold. The alarm was spreading. They weaved through the crops, but the lights of another harvester glowed ahead, blocking their path. The human skidded to a stop, breathing hard, scanning for escape. The blades spun mercilessly, the ground vibrating beneath their power. Turning back was not an option. He spotted a narrow maintenance ditch running parallel to the harvester's path. Without hesitation, he dropped into it, clutching the girl tight. They pressed against the earth wall as the massive machine rolled by, its lights flooding the field like a rising sun. The roar was deafening. Soil rained down on them as the machine chewed forward. The girl buried her face in his chest, trembling violently. The human shielded her with his arms, his heart racing. He could feel every vibration shaking through the earth, every turn of the blade above them. If the machine veered even slightly, it would crush them both. Finally, the harvester rumbled past, leaving them swallowed in silence and smoke. The human let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He lifted his head slowly. No one had spotted them for now, but the danger had only grown. The girl looked up at him, her eyes filled with unspoken questions. Why had he saved her? Why risk everything for someone the world had already abandoned? He had no answer. Not yet. All he knew was that he could not leave her to die. The voices of their pursuers echoed faintly, searching the fields. The human stood, pulling the girl with him. His body ached, but his resolve hardened. They had to reach his cabin, a small shelter on the colony's edge. If they could make it there before dawn, they might have a chance. They moved quickly, crouching low as they slipped between rows of crops. Every rustle of leaves felt like thunder to his ears. Every step seemed too loud. But the girl stayed silent, clinging to his arm, her trust in him growing with each moment. At the edge of the field, the lights of the colony flickered faintly. Smoke rose from chimneys, shadows moving between the huts. The human knew the elders would be awake soon. If word reached them before he got the girl to safety, the punishment would be swift. They reached a narrow path leading away from the harvest zone. Relief surged through him, until a sharp voice rang out behind them. He spun, his body tensing. A tall alien figure blocked their path, staff in hand, eyes burning with fury. The alien's gaze shifted from the human to the girl. Recognition darkened his face. The girl stiffened, her breath catching in her throat. She knew him. He was her uncle. The human's heart pounded. His mind raced for choices. Fight? Run? Plead? He had seconds before more would arrive. The harvester's roar still echoed faintly in the distance. But now the true danger stood before him in flesh and bone. He tightened his grip on the girl's hand. His decision had already been made when he ran into the field. There was no turning back. With a deep breath, he faced the furious alien and whispered to the girl, "Stay behind me." The human's chest rose and fell heavily as he faced the tall alien blocking their path. The moonlight revealed sharp features, eyes glowing faintly with rage. The staff in the alien's hand gleamed with metal tips, a weapon that could strike with speed. Behind him, the girl trembled, pressing herself close to the human's side. The alien's voice cut through the night like a blade. "You should not have touched her. She was chosen. She was left for the earth and the machines. You have broken what cannot be broken." The human tightened his grip on the girl's hand. His throat was dry, but his eyes stayed firm. "She's a child," he said simply. "No child deserves blades for a bed." The alien sneered, stepping closer. "You don't understand our ways, outsider. By saving her, you have cursed us all." The human felt the girl's fingers clench tighter around his. He could feel her heart hammering against her ribs, as if it might break free. He knew there was no way to talk himself out of this. The man before him would not allow them to leave. The staff lifted, gleaming under the moonlight. In that instant, instinct overpowered fear. The human ducked as the weapon slashed through the air. He grabbed a stone from the dirt and hurled it with desperate force. It struck the alien's shoulder, forcing him back a step. Not enough to wound, but enough to open a gap. "Run!" the human growled. He pulled the girl forward, sprinting down the narrow path. The night exploded with shouts. More figures stirred in the fields, their voices sharp, angry, echoing across the colony. The alarm was spreading like fire in dry grass. Shadows moved quickly, chasing them from every direction. The girl struggled to keep up, her legs weak and bruised. The human scooped her into his arms again, his muscles burning as he carried her. His breath came in ragged gasps, but he did not stop. The path twisted through rows of crops, stalks whipping against his face as he charged ahead. Behind them, the aliens gave chase. Their steps pounded the earth, closer with every heartbeat. The whistle signals shrieked through the night, calling others to join the hunt. The human's cabin lay far at the colony's edge, near the hills where the workers stored their tools. If he could just make it there, he could lock the door and buy a few hours before dawn. But reaching it felt like crossing an endless distance with the weight of the girl in his arms and fury at his back. He pushed harder, his lungs screaming for air. The girl clung to him, her face buried against his chest. "They won't stop," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll come until one of us is gone." The human didn't answer. He couldn't afford words. Every ounce of his focus was on moving forward, weaving through shadows, avoiding the lights of patrolling workers. Suddenly, a figure lunged from the side, swinging a tool like a blade. The human twisted, barely dodging the strike. The weapon grazed his arm, tearing his sleeve and skin. Pain shot through him, hot and sharp, but he didn't stop. He shoved the attacker aside with his shoulder and ran harder. The girl looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. She whispered in disbelief, "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." The human met her eyes for a brief moment. "Because no one else would." The words struck her heart like lightning. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her. Not out of duty, not out of tradition, but out of simple will. They reached a split in the path, one side leading deeper into the colony, the other toward the dark hills. He veered toward the hills, away from the glowing lights. The soil grew uneven, rocks jutting out, slowing his steps. Behind them, the chase grew louder. Angry voices shouted in unison. The human strength began to fade. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. His arms ached from carrying the girl, but he refused to set her down. If he slowed, they would be caught. The ground dipped suddenly, revealing a narrow stream cutting through the earth. Without hesitation, he splashed into it, the cold water biting at his legs. The current was weak, but it muffled their footsteps, covering their escape. He waded upstream, carrying the girl higher into the hills. For a few moments, the voices behind them grew distant. The girl lifted her head, her voice hopeful. "Did we lose them?" The human shook his head. "Not yet." As if on cue, a horn echoed across the colony. Its deep sound rolled like thunder, a call that carried far beyond the fields. The girl shivered. She knew what it meant. The elders had been awakened. The human's heart sank. The hunt was no longer a matter of angry family members. It was now the will of the entire colony. And against that, they had no chance if they were found. Still, he climbed. Up the stream, into the dark hills, every step fueled not by strength but by stubborn defiance. The girl clung to him, her trust unshakable now. Behind them, the colony burned with movement, lights flaring, shadows spreading out like a net. The pursuit was far from over. The human glanced at the horizon, where the faint glow of dawn was beginning to touch the sky. He knew the night had been theirs to run, but the day would belong to their hunters. And as he pressed deeper into the hills, carrying the fragile life he had saved, he realized something chilling. By saving her, he had not just angered a family. He had challenged a way of life older than he could comprehend. The true chase was only beginning. The hills were quiet except for the sound of rushing blood in the human's ears. His legs trembled with exhaustion, but he forced them to keep moving, one step after another, carrying the girl away from the burning lights of the colony. The cold wind brushed against his face, carrying with it the faint cries of hunters spreading across the fields. They were still searching. They would not stop. When the path finally leveled, he lowered the girl onto a flat stone and leaned against a tree, gasping for air. His body screamed in pain, his arms heavy from carrying her, his lungs raw. The girl sat still, her hands trembling as she touched the raw marks left by the ropes. For a long moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the distant calls of searchers. Then the girl spoke, her voice soft and broken. "You don't understand what you've done," she whispered. The human glanced at her. "I saved you." Her eyes lowered. "No, you changed everything." He frowned, not following. "They tied you in front of a machine. I wasn't going to let them kill you. That's all." The girl shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. She pressed her small hands against her arms, rubbing as if she could wipe away the truth carved into her skin. For the first time since he had seen her, he noticed faint symbols glowing faintly in the moonlight. They looked old, carved not by accident but by ritual. "What is that?" he asked quietly. Her body stiffened. She pulled her arms close, as though protecting them. "It is why they left me. It is why they wanted me gone." The human knelt before her, lowering his voice. "Tell me." Her lips trembled as she spoke. "When I was born, the elders said I carried the mark of ruin. They said the old prophecies spoke of a child who would bring chaos to the colony, who would draw death and war wherever she went. They said if I lived, the family would suffer. So they decided to end me before the curse could spread." The human's chest tightened. He stared at the glowing symbols, etched deep into her skin. They were strange patterns he had never seen, but there was something powerful about them, something ancient. He reached out slowly, but she flinched away. "I'm not a curse," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never wanted this. I never asked for it. But they all looked at me like poison. Even my mother." Her words cut deep into the human's heart. He saw the loneliness in her eyes, the crushing weight of being condemned from birth. She had not been given a chance to live, only to be feared. "You're not poison," he said firmly. "You're alive. And that's enough." The girl looked at him with disbelief. "But you don't know what it means. The marks. They say I will bring fire to the colony, that I will call enemies from the stars, that even humans will turn against us because of me." The human shook his head. "Prophecies are just words. They don't decide who you are. You do." The girl's lip trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever told her she had a choice. Before she could answer, a howl echoed through the hills. The human stiffened, his hand instinctively reaching for the small tool strapped to his belt. The searchers were close. Lights flickered in the distance, moving like hungry eyes through the dark. The girl clutched his sleeve, her eyes wide. "They will find us." He nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then we keep moving." He lifted her into his arms again, though his body screamed in protest. They slipped deeper into the hills, following the stream that wound through the rocks. Every step carried them farther from the colony but closer to something else. Unknown, uncertain, dangerous. As they climbed, the girl spoke again, her words trembling. "You don't understand. By saving me, you've made their fear real. They will see me alive and say the curse has begun. They will come after us both until one of us is gone." The human kept his eyes forward. "Then let them come." She blinked at him. "Why? Why would you risk yourself? You don't even know me." He glanced at her, his expression steady. "Because I know what it feels like to be unwanted, to be an outsider. And I know that no one deserves to be thrown away." Her throat tightened. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But this time they were not only from fear. For the first time in her short life, she felt the warmth of being seen. Not as a curse, not as a burden, but as someone worth saving. The lights of the searchers grew brighter behind them, spreading like fireflies across the fields. The girl buried her face against his shoulder, her voice soft but steady. "If the prophecy is true, then I will bring ruin to everyone, even you." The human's grip tightened around her. "If that's the future, then we'll face it together. But I don't believe fate is stronger than choice." Her heart pounded at his words. Somewhere deep inside, a spark ignited, a fragile but growing hope. But far behind them, the horn of the elders echoed again, deeper and louder than before. The hunt was no longer a simple chase. It was a judgment. The human knew it. The girl knew it. Their survival meant more than just running. It meant defying the entire weight of tradition, prophecy, and fear. And as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, both of them understood. The secrets carved into her skin would not only decide her fate, but perhaps the fate of humans and aliens alike. The first light of dawn spread across the hills, painting the sky with pale gold. The human stood on the ridge, holding the girl close, his eyes scanning the land below. From up here, he could see the colony in full. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the fields glowed under the touch of the rising sun. But between those rows of crops, he also saw shadows moving, hunters fanning out, searching with determination. They had not given up. They would never give up. The girl sat quietly on a rock, her eyes lowered. She had not spoken since the last horn call. The marks on her arms still glowed faintly in the weak light, a constant reminder of the prophecy. She looked fragile, like a flower crushed under the weight of too much soil. Yet inside her eyes, something new was beginning. A spark of defiance, born from the human's words. He crouched beside her. "We can't stay here. They'll find us soon." She looked at him, her voice small. "Even if we run, they will keep chasing. The elders will not stop until I am gone. They fear me more than death." The human's jaw tightened. He had lived among the colony long enough to know she was right. The elders ruled with iron belief. Their word was law, and their fear of prophecy stronger than any bond of blood. Saving her had not just broken tradition, it had challenged their authority. From the valley below, a new sound rose. Drums. Deep, steady, shaking the ground even from this distance. The girl stiffened. "That's them," she whispered. "They are calling the judgment." The human's chest tightened. Judgment meant they were no longer chasing in secret. It meant the entire colony would know. It meant the elders themselves were stepping into the hunt. He stood, eyes fixed on the smoke curling upward from the village center. "Then we face them." The girl's eyes widened in fear. "Face them? You can't. They will kill you. And me too." He shook his head. "Running will only stretch the chase. If they want to end this, they'll have to do it in front of everyone." For the first time, the girl noticed the fire in his eyes. Not the fire of anger, but of unshakable will. He was only one man, an outsider, yet he stood as if he carried a mountain on his shoulders and would not let it fall. Hours later, when the sun had climbed high, they walked back into the colony. Gasps rose from the workers as they saw the girl alive, walking beside the human. Whispers spread like wind. "The cursed child lives. The prophecy walks among us." The elders gathered quickly, robed figures with stern faces, their eyes burning with judgment. At their command, the crowd pressed closer, circling the human and the girl. Her family stood among them, faces pale with rage and fear. The eldest of the council stepped forward, his voice loud enough to echo across the fields. "You outsider, you have broken sacred law. You have stolen what was given to the soil. You have brought the curse upon us all." The human placed himself between the elders and the girl. His voice was steady, though every muscle in his body was tense. "I saved a child from death. If that is a crime, then your laws are already broken." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some looked away in shame. Others muttered in anger. The elder's eyes narrowed. "She is marked," the elder thundered. "Her life means ruin. Her blood will bring enemies to our gates. You cannot fight fate." The human took a step forward, his fists clenched. "Fate doesn't kill children. People do. And people can choose differently." The crowd shifted again, whispers growing louder. Some nodded quietly, others scowled. For the first time, the elder's control seemed uncertain. The girl, standing behind the human, felt her heart racing. She had always believed her voice meant nothing. But now she saw something she had never seen before: hesitation in the faces of the people, doubt in the eyes of those who had once called her a curse. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "If I am a curse, then why am I still here? If fate wanted me gone, the blades would have taken me. But he noticed me. He chose me. Maybe that means something more than fear." The silence that followed was heavy, pressing down on every ear. Even the elders paused. The girl's words were simple, but they carried weight, breaking cracks into the wall of tradition. The human placed a hand on her shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. Together, they stood before the colony, not as curse and outsider, but as something new, a challenge to everything the elders believed. The eldest council member raised his staff, face hardening. "If you protect her, you stand against us all. You will face exile." You will face death. The human's voice rang out clear. Then let it be exile. Let it be death. But you will not take her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. For the first time in memory, someone had spoken back to the elders without bowing, without fear. The colony held its breath. The air was alive with tension. The line between tradition and change stretched thin. Some aliens lowered their heads, ashamed. Others clenched their fists, ready to defend the old ways. And in that fragile moment, the turning point had come. The girl was no longer just a shadow meant to be erased. She was a voice. She was a symbol. And standing beside her was a human who had refused to look away. Whatever happened next, the colony would never be the same. The crowd stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the human and the girl. The early morning sun lit the harvest fields, its glow revealing every face. Fearful, angry, doubtful, and hopeful. For the first time in generations, someone had dared to defy the elders. The human stood tall, his hand resting on the girl's shoulder, his jaw firm, his gaze unflinching. The eldest elder raised his staff high, the polished wood gleaming in the light. His voice boomed like thunder. This outsider has broken sacred law. He has challenged the order that has kept us safe for centuries. And he shields the cursed one, who was chosen to be erased. Their defiance will bring ruin to us all. A ripple of agreement moved through some of the crowd. Heads nodded, lips hissed curses. But not everyone joined. Others kept silent, their eyes shifting uneasily. Seeds of doubt had been planted, and the elders could feel it. The human's voice cut through the noise, calm but strong. You fear her because of old words carved into stone. You call it prophecy, but it's only fear. You've let fear make your choices for you. I am not from your blood, yet I see what you cannot. She is not a curse. She is a child, and I will not let you kill her. Gasps spread through the colony. His words were dangerous, but they carried truth, and truth could not be easily silenced. The elder slammed his staff into the ground. Then you choose death. A circle formed. Warriors stepped forward, their staffs and blades gleaming, their eyes cold. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She gripped the human's sleeve tightly, her heart pounding. She whispered, "You can't fight them all." The human crouched slightly, his eyes never leaving the elders. "Maybe not, but I can stand long enough to show them what's right." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but something else sparked within her. A strange warmth, as if the marks on her arms were stirring. The faint glow returned, brighter now, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The crowd noticed. Murmurs spread like wildfire. "She glows," someone whispered. "The prophecy." Another muttered, voice filled with fear. The elders raised their hands, calling for silence. "This is the curse awakening. Do you see? This is why she must die." But the human stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. "No, this is not a curse. This is power. And you're afraid because you cannot control it." The tension snapped. The first warrior lunged forward, swinging his staff. The human dodged, grabbing a wooden tool from the ground. The clash of wood against wood echoed loud, each strike filled with desperate force. He blocked, parried, and shoved, moving with the raw strength of survival. The girl cried out, reaching for him, but he held the line. Two more warriors joined the fight. They circled him, blades flashing in the light. The human fought fiercely, his body moving with instinct, but he was outnumbered. A strike grazed his arm, blood staining his sleeve. He stumbled, but he did not fall. The girl's marks flared brighter, glowing like fire beneath her skin. Pain shot through her body, but she clenched her fists, refusing to collapse. Something inside her wanted to break free, something she had feared her whole life. Now she understood. This was not ruin. This was strength. She stepped forward, her small voice rising above the clash. "Stop!" The glow burst from her body like a wave of light. The warriors staggered back, shielding their eyes. The ground trembled as the energy spread through the soil. Crops bent, dust rose, and the air pulsed with heat. The crowd gasped in awe. No one had ever seen such power before. It was not destruction, it was life. The plants, once cut and broken, began to regrow where the light touched. The harvest fields shimmered with new green. The human turned, his eyes wide with shock. The girl stood tall, her face lit with determination, the glow painting her like a beacon. The elders stumbled back, their voices breaking. This cannot be. This is not the curse. The crowd too saw the truth. Whispers changed to shouts. She brings growth. The fields live again. She is not ruin. She is hope. The tide had turned. The elders, once unquestioned, now looked small, their fear exposed. The human, battered and bleeding, stood beside the girl. He placed a hand on her shoulder, pride shining through his pain. You see, he told the crowd, you called her cursed, but she carries your future, not your end. The colony fell silent, the weight of choice pressing down on every soul. Finally, an older worker, his face lined with years of labor, stepped forward. He dropped his blade into the soil and bowed his head toward the girl. No curse brings life. I will not harm her. Others followed, one by one, lowering their weapons, bowing their heads. The crowd shifted, voices rising in agreement. The elders tried to shout them down, but their words were drowned by the people's cries. The girl trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. Not of fear, but of release. For the first time, she was no longer alone. For the first time, her life was not just her own. The human looked at her, his tired smile carrying all the strength he had left. It seems the prophecy was wrong. Or maybe it just needed someone to see the truth. The girl wiped her tears, her glowing marks dimming softly. Not a curse, she whispered. A choice. And in that moment, under the wide sky and before the eyes of the entire colony, the final stand was made. Not with blades, not with death, but with truth, courage, and the will to choose hope over fear. The colony would never forget the day a human noticed what everyone else ignored.